Hello everyone, I'm Bruffy1322 and welcome to Real Life Racing episode 12 and the final round of the 2014 championship. So here, as you can see, the conditions aren't exactly as dry as they could be. It's very foggy, the track is pretty much completely wet at this point and it's quite difficult. So I qualified in 8th place and I started in 8th, and obviously, as you can see, it's quite tricky going into the first corner, and people generally want to be on the outside line because that's where all the grip is. But obviously, you know, people are sliding around, slipping around. I lose a place straight away. I get hit in the back a little bit, and you know, people just come barreling down the inside, as you can see there. Now, what generally happens in those kind of situations is that I act as the brake for somebody else. You know, I just get left out to dry, and as you can see here, sort of going down the inside there, the guy who made that move would never have got that move done if the other guy hadn't been there to stop him from sliding out wide. So, you know, some people do that. It's not exactly the best thing, but yeah, it happens. But as you can see there, that's the kind of benefit that you get from going right around the outside. There's a lot more grip around the outside of the corner in these sort of conditions, and you're able to get the power on a lot earlier. And that's exactly what you saw there. So he went around the inside and I just managed to get her all the way around the outside. It looked as though I was a lot slower, but I got the power on a lot earlier coming out of the corner and got that move done. So although I was down in 11th place at one point, I've managed to work my way back up to 9th pretty quickly, and then it's basically a dogfight for the rest of the round. So if you were watching the previous episode, you'll know that I'm basically in a fight in the championship for 2nd place. And I'm fighting against 2 other people who could also beat me. Now, I had a really good round last time, and that sort of helped me certainly get a lot closer to securing 2nd place in the championship. But it's still, you know, it's still up in the air. You know, I do have to get some good points regardless of what they do. And if I have a bad result, there's always a chance that they could jump me and I could end up in 4th position. So, you know, I want to have a nice consistent round this time, score some good points, but that's always very difficult in conditions like this where, you know, anything can happen. It's very, very slippy. It's very hard to be as consistent as possible when there's other people who might be sliding into you or knock into you. It's a lot easier for you to slide around yourself. You know, it's just very difficult, but these are the sorts of conditions that I've kind of been hot and cold on in the past. You know, sometimes I've done really well, sometimes I haven't, and it's just about getting a feel for the conditions and finding out where the grip is. Now, it isn't actively raining. Obviously, it's quite foggy, and it did get difficult to see near the end. And you'll see that the camera sort of changes its position because I had to lift up my visor near the end of the race just so I could see, because it just missed it up a lot, far too much. But yeah, you know, it's just about finding where the grip is. So as you saw there, I went down the inside in that corner. It wasn't the quickest way to go, but it allowed me to get in front of the guy who I was overtaking, and he couldn't get past me. And as you can see there, you know, he tries to come past me on the inside, but it's just there isn't enough grip. And yeah, it's just basically a journey into the unknown on every single corner. The track is drying, but not very much. So, you know, between races you'll see more of an improvement, but the dry lines will start to come, and you have to kind of figure out when it's going to be the best time to go on those dry lines. Now, in the past, I would say that I would generally wait a little bit too long before going towards the dry lines, and that's where I would lose a lot of time. I don't tend to do this in this one, but you'll see why in future races. But yeah, I feel quite good about this at this point, and you know, I'm gaining on people. I'm finding some grip in certain areas where other people aren't, and the chicane seems to be one of them here. You know, I'm taking a little bit of a different line and focusing on getting the power out of the corner, and as you can see there, it's doing me quite well. It's certainly helping me. In general, when it is really, really wet, you want to be all the way around the outside of the chicane there. But then again, as you can see, you know, going around the outside of that hairpin there, he gets the power on a lot earlier. So it is a balancing act between where you need to be on the track, and sometimes you can take a line and not get it right, and someone will come flying past you. Again, he goes for the move again on the inside there, and that's what you got to do. You got to try those moves in these kind of conditions. But it is tricky, and it's certainly very difficult to cope with. But I'm feeling good at this point. I'm back up to my the place where I qualified, and I'm making positions. I'm catching up to people, and that's a good thing. So I'm at this point feeling good about my chances, and certainly feeling good about sort of getting some good points for the championship. Now, as I mentioned, I'm fighting against two people for the championship at this point, and those two people are they're definitely in front of me on the road. A reasonable amount. I think they're sort of third and fourth or something like that at this point. So I am aware that I'm losing points to those guys, but I can afford to lose points to them. If you saw the sort of little roundup at the end of the previous video, I can afford to lose quite a few points to the guys who are directly behind me in the championship because of that good round that I had last month. So I'm not really too worried about sort of losing second place in the championship, but I certainly don't want to have a disastrous result and give them any extra chance than they need. So this is kind of a bumper edition of the Real Life Racing series, where it's a little bit longer than normal. So most of these episodes have been sort of around half an hour long. Last month's was a little bit shorter just because there wasn't really a lot going on and I was kind of at the front a lot of the time, so that was a little bit shorter, but most of them are around half an hour. This one is going to be around 45 minutes, possibly a little bit more, and that's really because it's the season finale, it's the end of the championship, and as you can see by the lap times on the right hand side, we are going a lot slower than normal. So in the dry you would expect us to be doing 1 minute 6s, 1 minute 7s. We are a long way off the pace at this point, so the races last a little bit longer. And also, a lot happens in this episode as well. There is a lot of action going on in this episode. It's not your sort of run of the mill sort of race where I can just cut out a load of things that don't really matter. There is a lot that does happen in this episode. So yeah, it should be an interesting for you guys to watch. I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, the conditions are certainly something that we haven't seen previously in this series, and that I wanted a wet race to show you guys sort of how it's different. I would have liked it to actually be raining a lot and full on raining, because that makes it even more interesting. And I think the worst lap times that you're really going to see around this track when it is completely wet and really raining quite heavily are around 1 minute 45. So we are a little bit quicker than absolute monsoon conditions, but yeah, we are certainly way off the pace of dry lap times. So as you can see there, just on the exit of that last corner, I managed to find a little bit of grip on the inside, and that's allowed me to get a good run out of the corner, and that's allowed me to get into 6th position. Now that's pretty much how the race finishes. So I just can see that the guys who are up in the front there, I'm quite a bit of a distance behind them, as you can see there. But over the next 4 or 5 laps, I do manage to catch up to them, as you can see here, and now I'm sort of right behind them. But I just don't manage to get any extra positions done. But I'm feeling good about my speed in these conditions. I'm doing well. I'm catching up to people. I was catching up to people all the way through, overtaking people all the way through, finding grip where other people aren't quite doing that. And especially on that last corner, as you saw me sort of clipping the inside and getting the run out of it, I was doing that consistently throughout the whole round, and you'll see me do that quite a lot. And I'll mention it every time, just because I seem to be finding grip there that others weren't, and I'm pretty happy about that, because that's not the sort of thing that I used to be able to do. I would kind of just meander around the outside of the corners all of the time. So yeah, that was a reasonable result there, 6th position. I certainly had the pace to beat the 2 guys in front of me, I think, but yeah, it just ran out of time a little bit. So as we come on to race 2, the track has dried up a little bit, but it's still it's still quite damp. As you'll see, the lap times are a little bit quicker, but not that much. It's just that there are some areas of the track where you might be able to take a little bit of a drier line, and you've got to kind of go for that. You've got to be using that, because the not using it will really cause a detriment to you. Everybody else will be a lot quicker. So as you can see, the three guys in front of me now are basically the top three and myself, making the top four in the championship. Obviously I'm having a little battle with the guy in the red here, but yeah, the three guys directly in front of me. The guy in the white, as you can see there, has won the championship. He's easily already won the championship by this point, and you'll see why as he sort of sides his way through the guys in front. But yeah, the two guys in front of him are the two guys who are behind me in the championship, and those are the two guys who I'm directly fighting for second place in the championship. So for me to be just behind them like this, that's good for me. You know, I'm happy with that. I'm happy to be this sort of distance behind them, because that means that they're not gaining a lot more points than I am, and they really need to. You know, they need to get a lot more points than me. And if I can sort of do something about them, you know, make an impression on them, try to overtake them, then that's great. But otherwise, I'll be happy just to sort of sit behind them and come home with some good points. Now, they do need to outscore me by a lot. It's something like 70 points or 80 points out of 100 that they need to get. If I was to get less than 46 points or something like that, you know, it was quite complicated, but basically the idea was they had to get a lot of points and I had to not get very many. So you know, as long as I'm in this sort of position, 5th place with those two guys just in front of me, not getting that many more points than I am, I'm happy. So yeah, at this point I'm feeling good. You know, I'm getting the grip where others aren't, as I've said. I'm feeling happy about the way I'm driving. I'm feeling confident, and everything's going well at this point, and I can't really complain at all. So I'll talk a little bit more, I guess, about why you want to use the outside line when it's wet like this. So basically what happens is, as you can see there, you know, the guy in red just goes right around the outside of me. If that was dry, that would never have happened. You know, the quickest line is to start out wide, cut right in onto the inside of the corner, and then drift out wide again as well. Well, not really drift, but you know, you sort of let the cart go out wide, and you carry the speed through the corner. But in the wet, things are a little bit different. So trying to use the inside line in the wet is very difficult. And that's because all of the rubber from the tyres gets laid down on that inside line, because that's the one that everybody uses in the dry. So that when it rains, all that rubber is a lot more slippy than the regular tarmac. So by staying off that rubber as much as possible and using the outside of the corners, you will get a lot more grip than if you were on the inside and just slipping around on the rubber of the tyres that have been laid down. But there are some exceptions. So obviously this is a drying track, so using the inside line there, as I did before, I've managed to get a good run out of that corner. He goes a little bit too wide there, and I managed to stick to the inside, and I get that move done up into 4th place, and that was one of my direct competitors for 2nd place in the championship, so I'm feeling even better than before. So yeah, you want to be using the outside line unless the track is drying, which this track is. So there are some areas of the track that are going to dry quicker than others, and you'll see me use dry lines, the regular sort of racing lines, at different points, and sometimes I'll be trying it out, sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, and when the track is drying, you can't just stick to the wet lines all the time around the outside of the corner. But yeah, in normal conditions, when it is completely wet, you do want to be going right around the outside of the corner. It allows you to get the power on a lot earlier. It gives you a much better run out of the corner and much more momentum, and it's just the quickest way to do it in wet conditions. You know, this isn't a game where you can just drive the regular lines and you just experience a little bit less grip. There are different lines that you do need to take, and you do have to get used to it a little bit, and it does take some getting used to. I can definitely tell you that. So here we are again, coming up to the last corner, and I'm basically doing exactly the same thing, trying to get onto that little inside patch there of dryness that other people don't seem to be exploiting, and that's helped me get right up the back bumper of this guy in front, but it's just not enough to get it done. But at this point, you know, I've done that line a couple of times now and it's worked. I know that's the sort of thing that I need to be trying out a lot more, and I'm confident in the fact that that is going to work. I just need to make sure that I get the right sort of entry into it to carry the most speed, and make sure I get the power on nice and early to get out of the corner as quickly as possible. But as you can see, you know, I've caught up to the guy in front of me. I am hassling him, I am hounding him. The guy in first place, as you can see there, has actually gone off the track. So, unbelievably, he does watch these videos, and he's not going to be happy about seeing that. But yeah, he went off the track after being in a comfortable first position. So, unfortunate for him, I guess. But yeah, so that leaves our championship leader, who also watches these videos, back in the lead of where he's pretty much always been throughout the season. And yeah, the guy in front of me now, who I've been trying to overtake for the last few laps, is the other guy who I'm racing in the championship for. So he's my other championship contender who I sort of need to beat. So there is a big sort of incentive for me to actually get past, because it will mean that his job of overhauling me in the championship will be even harder. And as you can see, you know, I do the exact same thing that I've been doing, catch that inside line, and it works. So it's been working consistently every single time, and that's good to see, because I've been able to see something that others haven't been doing, and that's something that I'm not used to doing. You know, I would be the one who just goes around the outside of the track all the time. So that's an improvement for me there, just even looking at that, and it allows me to make these overtakes. And yeah, I feel good about the fact that I'm finding these dry areas and getting the jump on people, and making up these positions. So that's third place that I'm in now. And the funny thing was that after 7 laps of the race, we got the checkered flag, as you saw there. Now at the time we didn't think anything of this. You know, when you're doing 1 minute 30-second laps, the races are a lot longer than normal, and you don't really have an idea of how long you've been out there. So in terms of a normal race length, if we were doing dry lines, 7 laps of this would probably have equated to around 10 laps in the dry. So we thought that, you know, there wasn't really anything going on here, and it was the end of the race. But it turned out, as we actually, you know, did the final lap, and got round back to where we normally sort of line up for the next race, it turned out that there was a problem with the timing system of the circuit, which meant that we were starting the race again. Now that on its own is incredibly annoying. We weren't just starting the race again from the positions that we finished this race, we were starting them from the positions that we started the race. So I'd managed to have a really good race, I'd worked my way up into third place from 6th, and what I was about to do is find myself back on the grid to restart the race in 6th position, which is where I started. So I was already angry about that. You know, that's a stupid decision. They could have just done it manually, and it's very easy to see the positions that people are in. But that's one problem that they had. So I'm back in 6th place now on the formation lap, and what happens? My kart decides to cut out on me. So great, you know, that just adds to the misery. Now what normally happens in this situation, someone comes sort of running over, starts up your kart, and what would happen in general is that they would go around the track again to allow me to get back into my regular position. But since it was going to take someone so long to run over, I decided to get up and start the kart myself. Now I don't recommend doing that if you're ever at a kart track. Certainly don't ever get out of your kart. But I work there, I know the sort of how the karts start and things like that. So I just thought, screw it, I'll do it myself, because nobody else is going to be coming and doing it for a long while. So there was also another kart off the track further around the circuit. So I was assuming, as normal, that we were going to be doing another lap of the circuit, another formation lap that allows me to get back into my regular position, that allows the other guy to get back into his regular position, and that's the sort of thing that happens. But as it turns out, they decide to start the race. So as you can see, you know, I'm kind of incredulous at this point. I'm back in 25th position because my kart cut out, which wasn't a fault of my own. I decided to start myself up, and yeah, I end up back in 25th position, and they decide to start the race. They don't bother going round again to allow me to get back into the position that I should have been in, and I was seriously angry. Like, I don't get like that very often, but I just couldn't believe what they'd just done. You know, it was ridiculous. So it wasn't just the fact that this had happened. I've spun out before and ended up at the back of the grid. And, as you can see, it's quite entertaining, I guess, the footage at the minute, because I'm overtaking people left, right and centre. But that's the kind of thing you would expect. But I've been at the back of a grid before by making my own mistake. I've spun out before and ended up in 30th position and had to work my way back up. That, you sort of, in those positions, you just think, right, let's have some fun with it. It was my mistake. And there's nothing really on the line. The pressure's off, so let's just have some fun. But now, it was a kind of a mix of a lot of different things. The fact that I'd done the previous race, I'd finished third, and that was a lot of points. I'd finished in front of the two people who I was fighting the championship for. This is all about the championship as well. If I get some bad points here, then it gives them the chance to overhaul me in the championship. As you can see, I'm shaking my head. I just can't believe it. The fact that I'd finished third in the previous race and then we had to then restart it and do it all again was bad enough. But now they didn't go around again, so I'm right at the back of the grid for the race that really I should have finished third in. I was so annoyed, and you can kind of see it in the way that I'm driving. I'm so aggressive. I'm a lot more aggressive at this point than what I normally am. I'm really, really pushing what this kart can do. And if I'm honest, I think that was good, because it allowed me to sort of use some different lines that I otherwise normally wouldn't have. It allowed me to sort of really see what the kart could do, and I got a good feel for the conditions, even more so than what I already had. So obviously it's only been sort of 1.5 laps at this point, but I've already made up 13 positions. I was so fired up, I guess you could say, about the fact that this had happened, that I really, really wanted to just push the boundaries of what was possible and see if I could make up as many positions as I could. Now, I didn't know how many laps this was going to be, this sort of restart, and it turned out I think it's only 5 laps long. So they sort of reran the race. I mean, the whole decision-making process for this race was ridiculous. They could have just manually noted down the numbers of the karts, of who was where. We didn't need the timing system to do it. But the fact that they restarted it with the original order as well makes no sense. And I knew that I didn't have the full 10 laps to make up all these positions. I knew I only had a shorter amount of time. I didn't know exactly how many laps it was going to be. Turns out it was only 5 or maybe 6 laps. And yeah, it was just a combination of all that, with the fact that really I should have finished this race in 3rd position, and I'm fighting for the championship, and I managed to beat the 2 guys who I am fighting the championship for in the previous race that should have counted. It was just, yeah, it was certainly, I wasn't very happy, let's put it that way. I wasn't my normal happy-go-lucky self at this point. And that you can kind of see it, as I mentioned. I'm really catching up to people really, really quickly. Now, you would kind of expect that to a point, but when you get to even 12th position, it does become a lot harder to catch up and overtake people. But I'm still managing to do it, and I'm really, really pushing the kart at this point and really getting some good lap times, just because I'm so fired up about what's happened, and I really couldn't believe the situation that I was in. Afterwards, after the race, I went and saw the clerk of the course, the circuit manager, and he did apologise. He said it was their fault and they took full responsibility, but there was nothing that I could do. I had to. There's nothing that they can't just give me the 3rd position that I should have had, because they screwed it up. So yeah, it was a bit difficult, and at this point, all I'm thinking about is making up as many positions as possible, because I need as many points as possible for the championship. And also remember that the finishing position that you have in this race, that is my starting position for the next race. So I need to make sure I make up as many positions as possible, so that my whole weekend isn't ruined. I've got to make sure that that's the case. And obviously, as you can see, I'm doing quite well with that. I'm sort of taking no prisoners, really. I'm just pushing the kart to the maximum that it can do. And I'm making up positions all the time. So from being right at the back of the grid, I'm now in 10th place, and I've got my sights set on one person in front of me as well. And yeah, I guess looking back on it, I would have to say that this was kind of a race that I can be really happy about. You know, it's certainly got a lot of adversity from it, and I could have just sort of got annoyed and quit. You know, I could have just come in the pits and thought, well, that's ridiculous, I'm not having that, and took a bit of a hissy fit. But I decided to carry on as best I could and make up positions as best I could, and really sort of push the boundaries of what the kart could do, and that sort of, it also helped me to figure out the limits of what I can do in these sort of conditions, and I think it really has helped me when it comes to pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the damp conditions. Because, you know, in the past, if you're sort of in the top 10 all of the time, say, and it's wet conditions, and you're just tootling around and able to make those top 10 positions, you don't really push yourself to go as quickly as possible, because you think, you know, I'm quite comfortable. At this point, I really did have to push, and I think I learned a lot just from this race and being so fired up about what is possible in these sort of conditions. And as you can see, you know, I'm really catching up to the guy in front of me. He makes a little mistake here, which then allows me to get a nice run out of the chicane, as I've been doing, and that allows me to sort of get alongside, and that's another position gained. So it's been one hell of a race. You know, it's only been 5 laps, so really it's only been half of the distance at this point. But I've already managed to make up 16 positions, sorry, from the start. So yeah, it's been quite an interesting race. We don't get all of the 10 laps done, which is another problem. You know, if we'd had a full rerun of the race and I'd done all of the 10 laps, maybe I could have made up some more positions. But as it turns out, I do end up finishing in 9th place, considering I started in 25th position right around the exit of the last corner coming onto the first lap. I think I can be pretty happy about that recovery drive, even though it wasn't my fault, and even though I sort of I was kind of angry at the time, I guess you could say, as well. So yeah, I mean, as you can see from the lap times, at 1:24, the lap times are coming down, and I was really pushing it. And for race 3, I'm obviously at a disadvantage again, because I'm starting in 9th position, and I have no idea what the guy's doing on the right there. But yeah, I'm starting in 9th position again, and it doesn't just, you know, it doesn't just continue. It doesn't just sort of. It's not just the second race that is affected. You know, I'm badly affected in this race as well, because I have to start further back than what I did. Now, if I'd finished the race in 3rd position, which is really what I should have done, I would have started this race in 3rd position. But as you can see there, you know, I get a nice little move done on 2 guys there, taking 2 guys in one go, and I'm still fired up from the last race. You know, that sort of anger and me wanting to push as much as possible is still there. It's still there from the last race. So I'm really wanting to push. I'm really being aggressive. I really want to make up those positions, because now I feel the confidence that I can do that, and I have that sort of speed in me. You know, from the previous races, even the first race, I was feeling confident about how I was doing in these conditions, and the way that I was coping with it, and my speed in these conditions, and that's all combined with the fired up nature of the previous race to make me really want to do well. So, you know, I'm up into 7th. You know, I've already made up 2 positions on the first lap, which is good. It hasn't been the cleanest of starts. I've been bumped and badged a little bit from people, and I do go a little bit too wide there. But that, you know, it's already pretty decent. And yeah, it is what it is. You know, I can't change it at this point. I can't change the fact that I started in 9th position and had that bad race previously that wasn't my fault. I just have to get on with it, and just have to get on with the job at hand. And that's what I'm hoping to do in this race. So the track is drying a little bit more at this point. There are some drier patches forming, and we are able to go a little bit quicker than normal. But there are still some wet patches as well. And the corner that you're about to see coming up here, that is pretty much always going to be wet. You know, that's the last place to dry out. So you're pretty much always going to be around the outside of the corner at this point. But as you can see, you know, I'm really catching up to the guy in front. I'm feeling good about my driving at the moment. I'm being a little bit more free with how I'm driving as well, and that's really helping me. So he makes a little bit of a mistake there, and again, just like before, it allows me to sort of get a good run out of the chicane, which allows me to get alongside and get the move done. So that's up into 6th place, and that's after 2 laps. So I've already made up 3 positions from the terrible issues from the previous race, and the guys in front of me, as you can see there, just in the distance, they are about 5 seconds ahead of me based on, I've just done a little bit of a timing. They're about 5 seconds ahead of me, so that's a pretty big distance to make up, especially when everyone's sort of so close on pace in a championship like this. But by the time we come on to the end of the 7th lap, I've actually made up those positions, and I'm already on their back bumpers, and that's basically because I've been catching them at around a second a lap. 5 seconds over 5 laps. I've been catching them at around a second a lap, and that is quite a big pace difference. And again, it's because I'm so fired up. The times are coming down obviously as the track's drying a little bit, but I'm still fired up. I'm still pushing as hard as possible, and funnily enough, it's coming full circle. So the guy in front of me there and the guy in front of him in the black suit are the 2 guys who I'm fighting the championship with. So going back from the second race where I was fighting against these guys and I actually overtook them and managed to finish in 3rd position, then all of the shit that happened in the race after that, they weren't affected by it. Obviously, they managed to still get those high positions, so that's why they're still in these positions that they're in now. But after being all the way back down, working my way back up in the second race and then catching up to them all in this race, it's come full circle and I'm back fighting against these 2 guys who I'm fighting with for the championship. So it's interesting how that's worked out, and this is sort of the point where it does become good for my championship hopes. As you can see there, just on the left, the guy who I'm fighting the championship for goes off the side there. So that's 1 position gained up into 5th, and then there's just this guy in front that I need to sort of overtake, and that will be it coming really full circle. That will be it. The 2 guys who I'm really wanting to beat, I will have beaten, and if I can do that, that really pretty much secures 2nd place in the championship for me. If I can get in front of this guy, that secures 2nd place in the championship for sure. And as you can see here, I do the inside line again, as I've been doing all the way through the session, keeping it nice and tight, getting the power on nice and early, and I managed to get that overtake done. So yeah, it's been quite a roller coaster ride really on these over the last 2 races, being all the way back down. Well, getting up into 3rd position first of all and having a really good race, getting all the way back down again and shoved back to the back of the grid, having to work my way back up, and then also working my way back up in this race as well. It's been a one hell of a roller coaster ride in the last 2 races, but by sticking with it and by actually getting fired up and really driving well, I've managed to secure 2nd place in the championship with 1 race to spare. Obviously we do have the final where there are still points awarded, but at this point, after the 3rd race, I had already enough points to secure 2nd place in the 2nd place in the championship. So obviously I was really happy about that. The issues in the 2nd race kind of fade away at that point. If those issues in the 2nd race had caused me to lose 2nd place in the championship, then I would have been even more angry. But yeah, because I've managed to sort of come through it and still get those points and still get those positions, it's been, it kind of fades away. And I'm really happy at this point to have secured 2nd place in the championship. Now obviously all we've been doing throughout this series is comparing how I've done this season to how I did last season. Last season was my first season in the championship, and I think I finished 6th in the championship. I got a lot less points than what I've done, but we'll go over that at the end. But yeah, my improvement has been huge, and I'm really happy to have finished in that 2nd place. The guy who won the championship is very, very quick, and we'll go over that at the end. But I've learnt a lot from racing with him, and I've learnt a lot over this whole season really. So as you can see there, I've really reeled this guy in who's in 3rd place, the guy in the red. I've been catching him at an incredible rate. I am losing a bit of time on the chicane, I've noticed, just because I'm not used to it being as dry as what it is. But I am used to it, the inside line here being dry. but I make a mistake. You know, I've got that move done. I should have just stayed over to the left, but I didn't. I left a little bit of a gap there, which just allowed him to get through. So that allowed him to regain that position, and then I couldn't get him just by the end. That's basically what you're seeing now, is what 0.2 of a second looks like at the finish line. So yeah, so close to getting a third position there. Really, it was my own mistake that caused me to not get that third place and basically finish the second race how I should have started it, in third position. But yeah, it's interesting to see how that's come sort of completely full circle from where we were. And yeah, I've secured second place in the championship. So the final is just to have a bit of fun now. You know, there's no pressure at all. I'm starting in 7th position, but the outside line does get a bit of a better start. So I sort of dropped down immediately to, I think, 9th by the start of the by the first corner. But yeah, it's certainly been an interesting round at this point, and you have to have these rounds. You know, you have to have some adversity. You are going to have some adversity in motor racing. It's not always going to go your way like it did in the last episode. It's going to have its ups and downs, and it's how you deal with that makes you sort of win or lose. And I'm really happy with how I dealt with this. Obviously, I was angry during the race, and I was fired up, but I didn't give up. You know, I just continued doing what I needed to do, driving really well, and yeah, I was really happy with how I was doing. So overall, it's been quite a interesting round, and that's why it's been a little bit longer than normal, because frankly there was just a lot more going on, and we've still got one race to go as well. And in typical fashion of this episode, this race isn't exactly boring either. So obviously I went down into 9th position at the start, and I've kind of just tried to consolidate that a little bit. As you can see, you know, we are carrying a lot more speed around the circuit at this point. There are a lot of areas that we can just do the dry lines on. We might not be going quite as quickly as we would in the absolute dry, but we can still take those dry lines and get quite a lot of speed through. And as you'll see, based on the lap times, they do start to come down and get a little bit closer to what we're normally used to. So I've consolidated that 9th position, and really I just want to see if I can make up some places. Yeah, the pressure's off. I'm just having a bit of fun, as I said, and it's just the time to try something a little bit different. So it's pretty much dry lines everywhere except for this corner that we're coming up to now. As you can see, you know, I do decide to just give it a bit of a try. I get clipped a little bit on the inside there, which causes me to go in there into the side of him there. But I've managed to make up a position in that corner, and that corner will feature heavily in this race. It's quite interesting to try these different lines out, and it's a bit more of a challenge than just going around a full pace in the dry. So with that corner, you know, the inside line is still the slowest way to go around go around that corner, because it's still too slippy to take the dry line. So it is still quicker to go right around the outside of the corner, and that's just on that corner that I was talking about there. So although it's quicker to go around the outside, it might be possible to get an overtake done on the inside, and that's what I was trying there, and that's what I'm sort of thinking about at the moment. So as we come on to the end of lap 3, we're coming on to lap 4 now. There's a big group of 4 people in front of me, and you know, I've got my sights set on trying to catch up to them and maybe make up some positions if I can. And yeah, I managed to sort of get on the get up to the one guy in front of me in the blue, and it's a case of just trying something a little bit different. Now that inside line on the corner that we're about to come up to is something that you don't want to be doing all the time, because it can be quite slippy, but it's worth a try. You know, the pressure's off, it's worth a try. So I decided to give it a go, as you can see here, but I just don't manage to get enough speed through, and he obviously, by going around the outside, he manages to get the momentum out of the corner and still keep that place. But trying that, I saw how I did there, and I thought, that might actually work, that might pay off. So on the next lap, we're coming up to the same corner again. I decided to try it again. Obviously I'm on his back bumper again, and I decided to give it another go right around the inside. And basically what I'm trying to do here is just get in front of him. That's all I need to do. But again, I just can't do it. There just isn't enough grip to do it. Under normal circumstances, it's quicker to go right around the outside. But all I'm trying to do is just get in front of him and block him off from overtaking me. So again, next lap, I decide to do it again and try the same thing again. Now, I'm not going to be able to overtake him by going around the outside, so it's worth a try. I get right on the inside, a little bit more tighter, get the power on a little bit earlier, and I managed to get right up there just in front of him and make that move stick. So what happened there is basically that although he had the speed coming out of the corner, I basically got my kart in front of his before he could have used that speed to come back past me. And that's all I was doing. It isn't the quickest way to go around that corner, and you'll see me later on go right around the outside again. But it's all about where you can get that overtake done, and if you can take maybe a little bit of a slower line overall, but get your kart in front of somebody else's so they can't use the speed and the advantage of the line that they took, then that's all, that's what you want to be doing. So that's why I did that. That's why I sort of went for that line, and it paid off. You have to try it a couple of times before you get it down, and because you haven't really raced that line throughout the entire session, you've got to practice it a little bit, but it paid off, and that was great to see. And that was kind of another example of me sort of being able to figure out something that others maybe haven't. So again, we're coming up to the guy in the red. I've managed to catch up to him, and I tried the same thing again. Why not? It worked once, why wouldn't it work again? I was so close to getting it done there, but it just wasn't enough. But I'm confident in that sort of little move. I'm confident that that little move, if it's done correctly and if it's done in the right way, I can get it to work. So obviously I'm going to try it again. Now, as you can see, I'm really hounding this guy. I feel like I'm quicker than him, and I can make up another position. So I'm not just going to try in one position. I'm going to try in a few different areas as well. But it seems that as the track dries a little bit, it's harder to sort of have a little bit more of an advantage over somebody else. If you know a bit of a drier part of the track, they generally know about it as well. As you can see there, I did that. The guy who I overtook before is still behind me and trying to overtake me, so I do have to be careful. And as I said, I'm going to be trying in different places as well. So I'm trying on the inside here, but there just isn't quite enough grip to get it really, really tight on the inside line. But I'm just trying to get an overtake done anywhere that I can. So just by doing it in one place and thinking that might work, it doesn't mean that I'm going to stop trying in other positions. But it turns out that he sort of makes a little mistake there, runs a little bit wide, and I don't need to do that move as much as I normally would. I do take the inside line, but I managed to get it done quite easily because of his mistake. But then he decides to just hit into the back of me. And obviously, as you can see there with the hand signal and the head shake, I can't believe, after everything that's gone on today, I'm just not having that. I'm not accepting that. That's just totally ridiculous. You can't just hit in the back of someone and knock them off. So I think, right, I'm coming down the inside of you whether you like it or not, and I don't care what happens. So I get down the inside, and I basically just get the overtake done, a nice little overtake where the grip is, and that's it, basically. So after everything that had gone on to me today and all of the adversity that I'd had and all of the problems, I just wasn't going to accept getting a move done and getting punted into the back and knocked back down again. I just wasn't having that. So yeah, I thought, screw it, I'm making this move, and if you want to fight it, then you can do so, but I'm coming down the inside whether you like it or not. So yeah, there you go. It's that's pretty much how it finishes. Because I had to record so much today on this day, I didn't have enough battery for the last part of the race, and my battery runs out a little bit in about 30 seconds time. But as you can see, it is still quicker to go right around the outside of the corner, and that's what I'm doing. When I don't need to overtake someone, that is the best way to go. So yeah, I managed to finish the race in 6th position, I get some good points again, and basically finish where I finished this first race as well. So it's been a good round, got some decent points there, enough to sort of see me get second in the championship. and in comparison to last season, I've obviously done quite well as well. And as you can see from the total points there as well, based on last season to this season, I've got a hell of a lot more points this season than what I had last season. It's well over 100 points extra, and that just shows the improvement that I've made from last season to this season. And there you have the final championship table. I've just put the top 10 in there, but there were upwards of about 60 people, I guess, from who took part in it all year. And yeah, I managed to finish second, so I'm pretty happy about that. You know, I get a nice big trophy for that. And yeah, it's been a huge improvement over what I did last season. And I think racing against the guy who won, Callum Cleat, he's very, very quick. Racing against him has certainly allowed me to improve, and a lot of the other guys as well, who are very, very quick. You don't improve by just going to a track and, you know, going around it and beating people all the time. You know, you have to be racing against good people. You have to be constantly working out how you can improve and battling against people who are better than you. So yeah, it's been a really great season. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope that you've enjoyed watching it as well and sort of following in with in the journey with me. And just one final thing just before we finish up is the sort of comparison of between all of the results that I've had. So I did 40 races last season. I only did 36 this season because I missed one of the rounds. But those are the breakdown of the sort of different results that I got throughout the course of the season. Obviously a lot more first positions because I didn't have any last season. But overall it's been a significant improvement. So yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this series, guys. If you are new to it, you can feel free to go back and watch all of the previous episodes. There's a lot of good racing in there and a lot of interesting things going on. So yeah, I really do appreciate you guys watching. This is easily my favourite series, even though it takes easily the longest to do and certainly isn't quite as successful as some of my GTA stuff. But I just love doing it. I love racing and I love sort of talking about it and bringing it to you guys as well. So thank you very, very much for watching this series, guys. Hopefully we'll be back with it next season, racing here, and we'll try to race in some other places as well. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Leave all your comments down below. Leave a like, all that good stuff. And I'll see you next time.